We did all that. All right. Welcome back to Phenomenal Conversations with Mr. Short. Today we have Erik Cork. I had a chance to check him out some months ago. I was like, man, more people need to know about this guy. My goal is to interview phenomenal educators, and I don't think there's anybody more phenomenal than this guy. And when it comes to teaching writing. So, Mr. Cork, can you just introduce yourself to everybody?
Well, hello world and Jeremiah Short world. My name is Erik Cork and I am from Houston, Texas, and I'm a writing consultant. I travel around the United States and internationally. I'm in 45 different states and 5 different countries, and I use music and rap to teach literary skills and help students to soar and help principals with their data and to inspire students and ignite a fire in their fingertips. And that's the first time I've ever introduced myself like that. So I play basketball. I like sports. I like that game last night. Atlanta came back for 26 points, beat the 76. This is my time of year. This is my favorite time. NBA playoffs. And well, I just think they have all these injuries. So, so I got a dog named Noah.
Yeah, there's a lot of tainted legacies right about now. I think with the NBA, you don't know, a lot of guys gonna have asterisks by their legacy if they win the championship this year. So they're like, well, this guy was hurt and this guy was hurt. AD was hurt, this guy was hurt. So I mean, I think that's just the byproduct of have a sports background too. Of the season starting early, now you're starting to see it. I think probably catch up with a few of those guys.
Yeah, I think the only person that probably applies to really is James Harden though, because Kawhi Leonard was the poster boy for load management, but he banged up his knee. He could have been in perfect shape, but when you hit your knee, what are you gonna do? LeBron James got injured. Somebody rolled up on him. Kyrie came down. He could be in perfect shape. You come down on the ankle like that. I've jumped around in the cast before, so I know that ankle injury firsthand. And so these are injuries that happen during the course of the game, and so you can't really blame that on load management of starting early. I think James Harden, but James Harden, I'm from Houston. So James Harden would come in camp weighing 500 pounds. He doing all that. So James Harden is not known for, his summer workouts and off-season workouts. So when he came in, he tried to play himself into shape. And I think you can kind of attest that hamstring injury to the lack of playing time that he had this year, or, in his condition and other things like that. Maybe that can be blamed. But I think all the rest of them were sort of impact injuries when you look at them, things that happen during the game.
And it's such a shame because normally you see maybe one injury here and there, but it's kind of hard. I know, like when Golden State and Cleveland were going back and forth for all those years, it's like, man, can you really consider it a true rivalry when one year 2 big guys got hurt? Then, of course, LeBron teams came back with Draymond Green out one of the games. And then the next year, I want to say they got KD and then Kyrie left. So it's kind of, is it truly like, can you say that, it was a true rivalry, like 2 teams just going at it with the same, so to speak, I won't say bullets in the chamber, but the same.
Yeah, you want to see everybody at full strength. That's the ultimate goal, to see everybody with all their weapons, all their warriors on the court at the same time, just out there competing. That's why the All-Star game is so good, because everybody's on their A game and people not injured and they're out there playing. But when you see, like the New Jersey Nets, if those 3 players had played all year together, they had their chemistry and things down pat, it's like couldn't nobody even touch them this year.
That's going to be scary if they do decide to, if they are able to get it together and stay healthy the next 2 to 3 years in that window.
But Kevin Garnett didn't even make the first team, second team, or third team NBA, and nobody's even talking about that.
Yeah, but he was hurt all year.
So. He didn't make the first team, second team, or third team. Durant just got left all the way off, and so it was like, oh, okay.
Finna show y'all, and I think he has that opportunity now. Of course, it's the weird part, I think, with the NBA right now. I'm a LeBron stan, so I do feel he's the best player in the league. I'm not Shannon Sharp with it, but I do believe so. So it's a window now for the next guy at least to be the best player in the world. Now that LeBron's kind of sort of tailing off slightly, maybe not as much as everybody's making out to be. So I think it's a window there. But of course, we're getting into the sports thing. So let's go ahead and I guess get started with, all right, I call it my Walking Dead question. So just tell everybody how you kind of got your start as an educator. Of course, we were talking about sports. You have a background and so many other different things I saw. I was like, wow, this man's done a lot. So talk about how you kind of got your start in education.
Great specific question on your part involving education, because I kind of view myself as a writer first, and educator, second, third, fourth, because you got different things that you call yourself, or like father, dad, husband, um, entrepreneur, a lot of different hats that we wear. So to answer your question directly, how did I get started in education? Was an accident. I wasn't even looking to do that. I was just writing for I was an editor for a magazine, and I took
Mhm.
my daughter to an open house. She was in the first day of middle school, and the superintendent was there, and this was a low performing school in the hood. And the superintendent was up there talking to all the parents that night. It was packed in the cafeteria that night, and he said, "Listen, you all only scored like 40%, last year, and we have you on a growth plan. You're going to go up 10% this year, and to 50%, and then after that, we're going to go 70%. We go 20%, then we're going to go another 20% and get you up into the 90 to hundreds. Give yourselves a hand on this plan." And everybody said, "Woo, woo." I sat there because I had never. That was my first time sitting in like an educational setting, Jeremiah. And
Mhm.
I was sitting by the PTA president, this guy named Fletcher Simpson. I said, "Why is everybody clapping?" He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "It sounded like he just put everybody down. It sounded like he just insulted all these kids and all these parents to their face. He told them, y'all are going to score 50% this year, which meant half of y'all going to flunk." And
See,
that's
we
what I
think the
heard.
same.
That's what I heard. And so he said, "Wow, when you look at it like that," I said, "You just said to them and all the parents, give yourselves a hand because half of y'all are going to flunk this year. Half."
Mhm.
And so I heard the other half. So, you can be a part of the problem or a part of the solution. So I went up to the principal. He was sort of a new principal. He came out from this district called Goose Creek, and he was new. And he came with this team that was with the superintendent. And I said, "Listen, my name is Erik Cork, and I'm a writer for a newspaper. And so I can help your students with their prepare for the writing test, because I like what the superintendent said about only half are going to pass. So I'll come and do free workshops. I didn't even charge him. It was just as a volunteer for as in the community, because my daughter's here. She's not even taking the test." He said, "Well, what do you want to do?" I said, "Well, let me bring the students who are taking the test to the cafeteria, and I'll give them some tips on writing." That's what I called it, some tips. And he said, "Well, sir, that's 500 students you're talking about, eighth graders who are taking the state test." And I was like, "Okay." He said, "You want all 500 in there?" I said, "Yeah, bring them in there." He said, "Well, what time do you want me to bring them in, Ms. Court?" So we just kind of laughing. And so it's like, kind of lighthearted. I said, "What time are the morning announcements over?" So we just laughing and dapping each other up. He said, "I get through at 8:15. I can bring him in at 8:30. Give him 50 minutes, go use the restroom and bring them all in." I said, "Okay, bring them in. Good." And so I got him. And so mind you now, I had never done an assembly. I had never done a motivational speech or anything in front of a large crowd at all, ever. But I know we're going to talk about writing. You can wake me up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'll talk about that. So I was going to prepare something for them. And so I was looking forward to the challenge. But then he asked the question. He said, "Well, how long do you want them in there for? Like an hour, a couple hours?" And here are the words that came out of my mouth, Jeremiah. I said, "What time do they get on the bus to go home?" And we start cracking up and we start laughing. He said, "Oh, that's 4:30. So you want me to keep them in there from 8:30 to 4:30?" I said, "Yes, sir." Yeah, I'm being quiet right
Yeah.
now. A person who
Yeah.
has never done an assembly, who has never done anything, and I say, "I want you to bring 500 eighth graders in the room, and I'll keep them for 6 hours, and we'll talk about writing." And just I didn't have a workbook. I didn't have anything. All they were bringing was paper to take notes and a pen. That's it. And me, raw, in there. Well, to make a long story short, they I'll use that phrase a lot because I try to condense my stories. My wife told me to cut my story. So cut my story short, no pun intended. And so see, your name is Short, get it? Cut
Yeah,
my story
yeah.
short. And
Trust me, the
so,
kids always say your last name is short, but you're tall. I'm only like
oh,
that.
okay.
That's normally what the kids say.
Oh, I was gonna say, how does it feel to not be a bullfrog anymore?
I heard that
Yeah.
all through middle school.
Don't get me started off the subject. And so what happened with this is ADD. This is the ADD. That's why I relate to kids real well, because I think just like them sometimes. And so what happened was, um, they went from 42%, and I brought a pair of my dad's old boxer shorts. And I didn't really know my dad. I had visited him in Indianapolis, and he was in the hospital on his deathbed, and he had, well, supposedly deathbed, but he ended up living 2 or 3 years after that. I didn't have anything. I wanted something to remember him by. So the nursing staff at the hospital had all of his clothes that were clean, that were folded up. So I stole a pair of my dad's boxing shorts. So I can say, okay, I got something from my dad. Seriously, this is part of the story. And so I took those same shorts and I posted them on a poster board, a big poster board with the letters OSSD down the side, which stood for Operation Shock Some Draws. And that was the name of my workshop, Jeremiah, with all these eighth graders at the school, because I wasn't politically correct. I would be cancel culture right now. If I did that, I couldn't go into a
Oh
school.
my man.
Yeah, and so that was the name of the workshop. I said, because they only think half of y'all are going to pass this test. So we're going to shock the whole city, shock the whole district. And so that was the whole workshop. So the boys got into it. And just like 3 or 4 weeks ago, I got an email from a school teacher who was actually one of the students in the session. He sent me the email, or he commented on my Facebook page. He said, man, I was in that workshop, your first one. He said, this is the best day of school we ever had. And we were just kicking it. And I was just rapping with him and freestyling, talking about writing. And so I would see the boys at the gas, Mr. Cork, we're going to shock them draws, man. We're going to shock them draws. And that was the whole stand of the school. Well, they went from 42% to 86%. We doubled their scores on the writing test. So they shocked the district, shocked the scores. It was like one of those highlight moments. And then you asked me, how did I get involved in education? When they saw those scores, all these principals from other schools called the other principals and said, man, how did you double your scores in 1 year? And guess what he said? He said, this man came, he didn't even say my name, Jeremiah. He just said, this man came and talked to the students for 6 hours and they remembered everything he said and they applied it. And the teachers took notes and they said, well, like Mr. Cork said, we're going to do it like this. And I was just giving them tips as a writer. And so they went in and all these principals started calling, all of them. And I'm like, I don't even have a program. I don't have a book or anything like that. Just come and talk to your class for an hour. You know, I'm very country, man. So then I started going in and developing lessons. And I wrote my own curriculum because I was one of the writers involved in this program called Writers in the Schools. It's nationally renowned. And I became one of the star writers for the program. We had about 70 in there, but I was doing like 8 residencies all over the city when everybody else was doing 1, because I worked at a law firm at night.
Okay.
And so as I started traveling around and people were trying to get me in their schools, but I was only one person and they would try to patch another writer and they would send another writer in and they would go, no, we want Mr. Cork. If we can't get Mr. Cork, we want our money back. Okay, so it became a problem. So I had to resign because I said, let me go and do my own program and launch it. I had no schools, I had no bookings, I had no dates on my calendars, nothing. And so I did the summer thing for Texas Southern University, and teachers from all over came to the session. And this is my first professional development, Jeremiah. All of this is happening for the first time. This is all 1996. And I started doing that session, and then I got schools asked me, well, can you come talk to our students? I had no sound equipment, I had no microphones, I had no workbook, I'm just raw and green and just going on raw talent, right? No kind of structure. So I formed a company, and you know, and so I can get, you know, so they could write a check to somebody other than writing a check to me, because a lot of it I was doing for free. And so I was out in Galveston. I remember I sat in a parking lot in Galveston after I got my first paycheck. And I pulled to the side of the bank and I just looked at this check. I said, I can't believe they paying me this much money to talk about writing. And this is something I would do for free. I just sat there. I made more in that one day than I had made in my entire life for a whole month.
Wow.
And so I sat there and said, they gonna pay me to talk about writing? Oh my God, let me go and get serious, you know, and start doing a structure. And then that same year, I got invited to Detroit, Michigan, to do a presentation at the National Alliance of Black School Educators conference. I went up there, I had a warm-up suit on, University of Houston, warm-up jacket, blue jeans. I didn't know Black women came to conferences dressed in fur coats and minks, dressed to the nines. I was like, I didn't bring a suit. I'm raw and green, straight out the country. I say, oh my God. My room was packed with teachers from all over the country and principals and superintendents. And listen to boy, and I'm doing this session. It was like standing room only in that room. They were rushing up to me after Miss Jeremiah from Indianapolis, Indiana, Jacksonville, Florida, and Atlanta, Georgia. These principals came in, and we need you for a week in our schools. And one school district booked me for like a month. In all their schools, I'm like, oh, so I stayed in a hotel up there developing these lessons, and I got better and better at it. And next thing you know, they invited me again at the National Alliance of Black School Educators Conference into a big banquet hall, and the room was packed again. And so more of these people start calling and calling and calling. So getting involved in education, I became nationally known like almost overnight, because I would go in and impact test scores. So that's the thing that principals are into, data and outcomes
Yeah.
and results. And so they say you can put we see results. You're not just fun or just cracking jokes or having the kids laughing, but they remember what you say, you inspire them, and they can write. And high school kids walking up to me, girls and dudes, with tears in their eyes saying, I've never understood writing before. This is the first time I've ever understood it. And you just broke it down, man. I understand it now. You know, I was in Chicago in Proviso East High School, and I thought 250 students were coming, and they printed out the books. 2,500 students came in that day right there. And they came in, and it was like standing ovation. It's like all of them were like, man, this is like it was like a miracle. And all of them understood writing. So my wife told me to be quiet and let Jeremiah short. And that was a long answer to a question, how to get started in education. I don't think any of my future answers would be that long. So relax.
No, it's all good. I like listen to. I'm a writer at heart too, and one of my biggest. I think we relate a lot on that. Though people say I'm a little this, so, but when I'm interviewing, I tend to I know how to not talk, but with myself, not be that other people talk. So I mean, I enjoy listening to it because I mean, it encourages me and somebody that's been in it now 7 years and listening to. I mean, and kind of what I wanted to add to people listening, those that don't understand education as much. One, of course, he brought about the test scores. Everything, of course, we know we're in a competency-based, I guess, system in America. And traditionally, kids struggle in writing. For those that don't know, reading, of course, kids struggle, but writing, they struggle even more, especially kids from certain backgrounds. So someone maybe to come in, and you start talking about going from 40 to 80% or consistently 80, 90% within the school system. That's so, of course, you're going to be people will be standing room only because you just don't see that very often across any state. So, of course, that's one of the main, I'm sure, reasons why they're interested, especially if kids from certain backgrounds are into writing and learning it. That we're going to get more into that. I was like, man, more people need to know about him even more than do need to know about it. So my next question would be, how have you kind of mixed in the professional writing, just to humble brag on your behalf? You have pictures of people like Oprah, Michael Eric Dyson. I want to say even the guy that's the head of the Secretary of Education now, Mr. Cardona. How have you mixed that in with, being an educational consultant? Because it seems like it'll be a lot of things to manage.
Okay. Remember I was telling you a few seconds ago about 96 when I got invited up to Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was supposed to go up there with the team and two other people. One lady was going to talk about math, the other guy was going to talk about curriculum alignment, and I was going to do literacy and language arts and reading. And so, because it was cost prohibitive, both of them backed out. And I said, okay, y'all want me to go by myself? And I went. Well, the reason I'm saying that is because one of the people that was with me, he decided that he didn't want to go on a national stage, that we weren't ready, because people like Asa Hilliard or Jawanza Kunjufu or Michael Wynn or Barbara Sizemore, these legends in urban education, superintendents and leaders, were going to be there, and they're going to back us into a corner and ask us about our data, ask us about our research and things like that. And we're not ready. We're just getting started. I don't want to embarrass myself like that. And so my approach, Jeremiah, has always been, well, if I don't know, teach me. I have no problem saying I don't know. Why don't you show me? And so when you talk about Oprah and Stevie Wonder and Michael Dyson and other people like that I've met, and well, it's like they're human beings. They put the pants legs on one leg at a time, just like I do. So my approach has always been just to be myself and be organic and be authentic. And so as I start traveling around doing different things, my reputation would sort of spread as a writer as well as an educator. And one thing, I'll just put it in perspective like this. The reason it's effective is because when I go into a school, kids walk in ordinarily, almost 100% of the time, I'm 99.9. Man, this is going to be the most boring day ever. We're going to talk about writing all day. Oh my God. And they walk in, and then they leave out the total opposite. And I guess one of the best compliments that I get from teachers and from principals, Mr. Cork, you had 250 students in that cafeteria all day, and only 3 students asked to use the restroom all
Work avoidance.
6 hours. You had them 6 hours and only 3 students asked to go use the restroom. And when they did, they went running back because they were scared they were going to miss something. And so it's sort of the premise is, when you were little, did your mother or your father ever say to you, Jeremiah, if you could learn your homework and your schoolwork like you learn all these sports facts and all these trivia data and all these words of these rap laws, if you could learn your schoolwork like you applied yourself like that, you'd be the smartest person in the school. I said, okay. And so I started taking these beats and I started putting educational lyrics to it and doing remixes and these songs that these students would know, and they would be jamming and I'd be singing with them and doing these raps, and they would come out and they would remember. It was stuck with them. So my slogan sort of became, if your students are not learning the way you teach, then you should teach the way they learn.
Ooh.
And so I will go, so it's not about me, it's about the students being able to apply what I've taught. And education is not indoctrination where you're just putting information in a child's head. True education is when you pull out the genius in that child and you make them believe that they can climb mountains. You make them believe that they can do anything that they set their mind on and actually apply it, and show them the tools and the tasks and the strategies and the techniques to actually accomplish those things. Then they feel like they have a fighting chance, other than you telling them you can do anything. No, I'm going to give you the tools so you can do anything. And that involves strategies and techniques and the joy and the passion of expressing your voice and discovering your voice and the power of your voice and the impact of your personality and what you have to say, because math is just a series of memorizing facts. If you know a 5 plus 5 is 10, the beauty of math is they show you other ways to get to 10. 8 plus 2 equals 10 too. So does 7 plus 3. So does 1 plus 9. So math shows you different routes to get to the different, but when it comes, and that's why the most introverted person usually, they like math, because they don't have to break off a piece of their personality. They don't have to share their opinion on things. They can just give the right answer and move on. But when it comes to writing, you have to actually break off a piece of your opinion, of your personality, of your spirit. You have to be vulnerable to that blank piece of paper to share what your opinions are on a persuasive paper or on a topic, or what your summer vacation was like. You're revealing family details and things like that, and things that are personal to you. And some people are private. And writing is a struggle when you don't want to actually put yourself out there like that. And so how do you make a child feel comfortable expressing themselves when they feel like they have trouble spelling, or they don't like their handwriting, or they can't organize their thoughts in such a way? So it's like a checklist, check, check, check. Everything you have in this excuse, I'm going to break all those excuses down so I can say, okay, now what next? Why can't you do it now? And so I guess I can. And you show them. And one last story, there was a girl who could write circles around the classroom in 4th grade. And these things sort of come to me organically. Everybody was writing and she was just sitting there for 10 minutes, and she would always just sit there before everybody would write. But I knew the girl could write. And one day I walked up to her and I knelt down beside her, and I whispered in her ear, I said, girl, why aren't you writing? You know you are brilliant. You know how phenomenal you are. So she started smiling. And I said, and then I made it personal, and I whispered in her ear, I said, you know what? I'm going to give you a different topic. And she was like, what? She said, I want you to write about why you don't like to write. She looked at me, Jeremiah, this girl wrote 2.5 pages on why she didn't like to write.
But she don't like to write.
Yeah. You follow what I'm saying? And so mind games. And so you're playing with them and you're going. So I would have to attribute the success to, as the Holy Spirit whispers things into my spirit, or being obedient and going with the flow of the thoughts that, God puts out there for me to actually talk about. Even saying that, is politically incorrect in the school. But I feel like if I don't, credit the source of where everything comes from when it comes to me, then I'm compromising and selling out on behalf of trying to get a paycheck or trying to get a booking or something like that at a school. But my whole focus is being obedient. And as God is telling me to do different things, and I walk in a workshop, and we're not going to spend all this whole podcast or this live that you're recording right now, me telling stories, because I will have you on here for 6 hours, telling stories. So I'm going, that's how I got involved in
trust me, everything you said, I kind of understand, because I would say people give me the same grief about everything. So it's kind of like, so even in the classroom, I'm a storyteller. I tell kids like, oh my goodness, like, man, you got a story for everything. So when I was looking, kind of researching you a little bit, it seemed like not seen, you had a performer background, so did that kind of inform the way you kind of like taught? Because I mean, in a sense, you're just being yourself in the classroom. In a sense, the workshops are became an extension of your classroom. So did your performer background kind of inform that you kind of just naturally could do that? Because I mean, a lot of teachers, that isn't just their go-to, whether they're teaching writing, reading, anything, to just go in there and kind of almost make it engaging and make it fun for the kids. So was that something that just came natural to you?
Absolutely. My mother was the music minister at our church. And so
Mm-hmm.
my mother would stand up in church and read poems and do different things like that. And I would just follow in her footsteps and do poems. And I was writing raps. So I came along when it was hip hop, a hip to the hippity hip hip, a hoppy, you don't stop, the rocking to the bang bang boogie, said up jump the boogie to the rhythm of the boogie to beat. I still remember that 100 years later, that whole rap. And so I came up during that era. I was in high school. And so I was at the forefront of hip hop when it was out, back when Sugar Hill Gang and Curtis Blow and Kumo D and Rakim and Eric B and all that. So what happened was, I'm fast forwarding all these stories. I had my children in the
Mm-hmm.
car, and I was um, I was trying to teach them. I would do like their phone numbers. They still remember our phone number to this day. They're in their 30s now. I said, "What's your phone number?" So we took a Mariah Carey song and Boys to Men, One Sweet Day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I taught them their phone number, um, 4382664 is my phone number. They still know that their phone number. We haven't had that phone number in years, but they still remember it. And so I was teaching this. I volunteered to a neighborhood school, back to school kind of thing at this church. They were getting these kids ready, so they had a waiting list. And so I told them, if you put my daughter in, I'll teach a class one night a week. These kids would come into my session. They were elementary, middle school, and they would forget from week to week everything that went over that before. And I did the same thing. I said, y'all remember all these rap songs? Y'all know all the words of those. And they're like, ding, ding, ding. That means I need to change my teaching strategy. And so I would notice my kids would know all the words to all these songs that would come on the radio, and I would listen to them. And I said, okay. And so the universe was speaking. I said, okay, let me go ahead and take my objectives and my lessons, and I'll put them into one of these beats that these kids like. Next thing you know, these kids are going back to school memorizing these raps I would write on the board. I wrote on a chalkboard. I would write the raps out in freestyle on the screen, and we would write them all out like that. And I would write a verse, and the kids would write a verse, and we would do bars together on the song. And so they memorized it, so they took ownership of these lessons that I would do. And they went back and told their teachers, and the teacher said, "Where'd you get the song from?" "Oh, this man. That was my name for years, Jeremiah. This man." People weren't even saying Erik Cork. They were just going, "This man." And so then the kids were like, "Who is this man?" The teachers would come from their schools to check out the way I was teaching these students, and they were remembering, and they were retaining, but more importantly, they were applying the objectives of the lesson. So when you say a performer, I acted on in a stage play. We toured the country with Thomas Milan, some of his plays. So I'm theater background, and I've done a lot of TV shows, and I actually hosted a radio show
Okay.
um, at Southern University. And so I would sing and do spontaneous things on the air. And like, if you go to my workshop, it's a lot of music. The kids are dancing, I'm dancing, you know, and people say I can't dance, but that don't stop me from dancing. And so I get out there and I have fun with the kids, and they're like, "Oh my God, do another one." And so they're sitting on the edge of their seats ready to do another rap. And then I take it and we'll break it down and we'll dissect it, and we'll talk about the teaching points, which I call the meat in the beat.
Mhm.
So let's go. And then so they got familiar with that pattern. What is the meat in the beat? And that's what the principals wanted to know. What is the meat in the beat? What is the objective of this lesson? What are they going to learn from this? What skill are they going to acquire at the end of this song, or this joke that you're telling, or this exercise right here? And so there's always a bottom line. I'm looking at the students' enjoyment. I'm looking at their engagement, but I'm also looking at the principals who want to get their money's worth. When I come to a school, they want to know they get the most bang for their buck. They want to know, how are these students going to perform after you leave? Are they going to retain this, or is it just going to be a fun day for them? Or is it going to be something that's going to, improve their
Mhm.
test scores? And I'm like, better than that, I'm trying to do things that impact their mindset when it comes to literacy for a lifetime, Jeremiah. And so let's go beyond the scores. So let's go beyond, just passing the test. Let's go impact their spirit. Let's change their attitude when it comes to writing and when it comes to reading and when it comes to using their voice. Let's do that.
So a question I had as far as just the boring teaching part of it, has any, like, even some, whether superintendents or principal come up to you and almost be shocked that, it's not that you probably don't know the science, but like one of the big words in teaching is research-based instruction. But obviously you're just a great writer, so you were able to just teach the kids the skills without having to look at teach whatever it is or something like that. Has someone been amazed that you were able to get that growth from the kids, even though you didn't come from that traditional academic background? It doesn't seem like you're as focused on, what does research say when it comes to this, and this? So I know that kind of was a convoluted question, but has anybody ever come to you with that type of question as far as being able to get the kids to do that without all the boring research stuff attached to it?
Well, speaking of research, I bring my own research with me because I've been doing this for, so long. I have the actual results. And so I have the actual results when I go into a school before and after, and they are aware of this. And if you go on my website, it has all kind of before and after stories, letters from students, and you see their mindset. And so when you go in with research, I actually have before and after data when we go in. So that's what they want to look at. But the other research that I use are when I was telling you about, when I start talking about all these stories and I start talking about that's the empirical data that they want. Those are the stories they want, because research is just the organized accumulation of facts and things that have led along the way to the outcomes that you're looking for. And so when I go into a school, I'll give you an example. There are several principals, not just one. There are several principals who say, your workshop, personally speaking, Mr. Cork, is a little too loud for me. It's wild, but I love the results.
Right.
And they come in. So you come in every year to our school, and I just say, good morning. I shake your hand and give you a hug. And I'm going to my office because you're too loud for me. I'm old. And so they come in. And so they come in and they'll say that. And the story I'm going to say, right. Do you remember when they had the shootings in the sniper attacks in Washington, D.C. area? I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, that was my senior high school, I think.
Yeah. So around that time, I was in the Washington, D.C. area. And I was doing a workshop. It wasn't in Baltimore. It was like more DC, Virginia. And so everybody was walking around scared. Like, I don't want to go outside, being randomly picked off by these snipers. They go into gas stations. So the reason I'm saying that is because I did the workshop. They pulled down all of the shades in the cafeteria, made it, real dark in there because they didn't want, the bullets coming flying into the school. While, in the middle of my workshop. And so when I was carrying all of my things out to the car, the custodian ran out. He said, you ready? And they ran out to my car, like sort of ducking, and threw everything in my car and ran back in. It was like a blanket of fear that was over that area. The reason I'm sharing that story with you is because that day, the principal walks up to me in the middle of the workshop, maybe around an hour and a half, 2 hours into it. And she knew we were going to be there all day. And Jeremiah, she whispers in my ear, she goes, Mr. Cork, this is fun and everything, but when are you actually going to get to the writing? When are you actually going to get to when the students actually start writing? She says it's in the middle of my workshop. Okay. And says it right in the middle, like trying to change up my whole agenda, just doing, I want them to write. You're doing a lot of stories and you're doing a lot of raps and things like that. I said, oh, okay. I said, so I get to this definition section of my workshop when we talk about synonyms, we talk about what is a paragraph, we talk about what is the sentence, what is syntax, what is lexicon, all those metaphors, similes, and things like that. And so I started off with the basics. I said, so what is a sentence? And I went around the room with the microphone. It's like a line of words that start with a capital letter and it ends with a period. And that's the best they could come up with. I said, oh, okay. So I would write their definitions down and I would give them examples of what they just got through saying. And the principal was looking at me like, what's going on? I said, oh, what is a paragraph? It's like a bunch of sentences like put together. That's right there, a whole bunch of them. How many? It's like 3. And I said, it's 5. And one said, oh, it could be like 4. And they start arguing about quantity. Is the mark of a paragraph is the quality. A paragraph is, it's a family. of related sentences that you indent, and so I would break that down to them and they would understand, but they were giving all these wrong answers.
Mm.
And then I turned to the principal and looked at the principal and she had her mouth open. I said, yeah, you want me to talk about writing. You want the kids to start talking about writing and you're not even breaking down the terminology for them. And so it's like if a teacher goes up and says, I want you to write complete sentences, have your paragraphs to be coherent, students, and doing that. And they don't know what a sentence is and they don't know what a paragraph is, then you just went in one ear and out the other. So they must understand the terminology. So you play sports. If a football player if a lineman doesn't understand the blocking pattern, then the quarterback's going to get killed. Or if you don't understand these plays that are called, then you're going to be stupid in the huddle. And so I'm like, okay, you're going to get you. So they must understand the terminology that's being used so that we can all be on the same page. And so it's like, in order to speak my language, in order to participate in this workshop, you have to know what a sentence is. You have to know what a paragraph is. And that's why, what grade do you teach, Jeremiah?
I teach 4th grade.
Okay, 4th grade teachers at the beginning of the year, 2 or 3 weeks in the session, y'all meet in the teacher's lounge and y'all gather around the 3rd grade teachers and you go, didn't y'all go over this with them last year? And he said, no, we didn't go. We don't know about that. Y'all supposed to learn this stuff 2 years ago. And you find yourself frustrated, you and your 4th grade team trying to reteach something you think they should have learned 2 years ago. And so it's like, no, you take them where they are and you start with that foundation. So that's where I go. And it's like, if you think they understand, that you assume that they know what a sentence is. You assume they know what a paragraph is. I don't assume anything. I go in and I go, okay, we're going to rebuild this foundation because maybe you were ashamed because you didn't understand what syntax and lexicon meant. And so you're going to understand this terminology. So when I speak, and that basic philosophy goes all the way to calculus. If you understand the basics of geometry and algebra 2 and trig and all of things like that, you're going to be able to function well in a calculus class. But if you don't have the basic definition of your timetables and you don't know that, you're going to be lost in that classroom. You're going to retake that class again in college. You're going to need a tutor. You're going to need a mentor to help you or you're going to retake that class over again simply because you don't understand the terminology involved. And so that's why part of my workshop is understanding the terminology so we can all speak the language, understanding what are the skills, what are the rules, what are the expectations, what are the outcome, what is the essence of writing? What is the essence of literacy and language arts? And you deal with all those things like that. You have the essence, you have the expectations, then you have the execution of those things, which is called the state test. And then you have the explanation of those things. And all that is what you do all year, Jeremiah. That's your lesson plan. So you have the essence, you deal with the essence of beauty of writing. Then the second step, if you're taking notes out there, you're watching this right now online, write this down. I'm going to teach you. The first thing you want to do is talk about the essence of your topic, whether it's math, science, reading, writing. What is the essence? Why do the students need to know this in real life? Because they're going to ask you in middle school and high school, why do we need to learn this? Why do I need to know this? Give them the essence. This is why you need to learn. The second step, you talk about the expectations. That's the state standards. That's the scoring rubric. This is what you're expected to know in 4th grade. This is what they're going to test you on. The third step, the explanation of those expectations. That's your lesson plan. That's what you do every day, every semester. You're teaching every day. You're explaining it. And the way you explain it is based on your personality. It's based on your experience. It's based on your comfort level. It's based on your expertise. It's based on your passion. All those things, and based on what the state is giving you, this is what you have to teach. And they give you this mandated in your lesson plan, but sometimes they give you the flexibility to teach you in your own style and in your own methodology. The 4th step, if you're writing this down, execution. That means they must be able to apply everything you've been taught, everything you've taught them. Otherwise, it's just a big waste of whole school. If they can't apply anything that you have taught them, if they can't replicate it without you standing over their shoulder, then you have handicapped a person. You just went over a bunch of memorization things just for a test because they memorized it for the test. It went in one ear and out the other.
Right.
If it goes and you can make it go in here and go down to the heart, that's when you have become the most effective educator.
Now, of course, I know you interview multiple people, and I was actually going to ask one question next, but then I was like, well, kind of like you just kind of leading into the next one. I like, as I was looking through your history, I was like, man, why isn't this guy no more official capacity as far as with, I know you talked about somebody about building a curriculum and things like that. Has anyone ever asked you to be formally, well, I don't know about state, but on something where you build curriculum either for a state or even for a full school district as far as literacy and writing? Has anybody ever asked you to be in a official capacity like that?
Sort of, kind of, but it's more or less a committee
Mm-hmm.
type of um, invitation, but I'm as an entrepreneur and doing different things like that. It was my calendar was so booked at some points, man, it would get to a point where I have a waiting list of
Mm,
schools around the country, can't get to all of them. So being out serving on a committee and helping with curriculum and doing things like that. I have a workbook that I use. I think I have. Oh, here it is. I have a workbook that I use that I travel around with, and
mhm,
so the schools are able to use that workbook at their own leisure, own convenience, and they can apply whatever things that are in the book and feel welcome. This it belongs to you, and you can include that as your curriculum. So I don't really have to sit on a committee. I was one school had they were building a new school, a charter school, and they wanted to name it after me. And I'm like, are y'all serious? That's like crazy. First of all, I'm still using my name. So I can't, have no kind of scandal going on at school. And the Erik Cork Academy today, this is what happened. And you're on Fox
yeah,
News, and you're
yeah.
and ABC and CBS and CNN, and this happened at the Erik Cork Academy today. And so I'm like, oh, so I'm still using my name. So helping out with curriculum and things like that. So you get into a slippery slope, Jeremiah,
Mhm,
of intellectual property,
mhm,
because if I wrote it and I'm an entrepreneur and I have my own business, if I'm lending my things to or things that I created to a school district, then I'm actually signing over my intellectual property
mhm,
to a school district, and you may or may not even get credit for it, or may not even get paid for it. And I still have
mhm.
mortgage and car notes and things like that. So a lot of things that I do, you have to kind of weigh them between your passion and love for children versus being responsible with your own intellectual property and not giving it away.
I feel I had to ask that question. I was like, man, like some of this stuff is so good. I was like, man, this is, I mean, teachers have to use so many curriculums and so many just everything. I was like, man, this yours is awesome. I was like, man, it'd be great if it
Well,
was.
let me go ahead and say this to you too, for you, because you might have listeners out there that may apply to this. I was in Camden, New Jersey,
Mm,
and I would go there every year to do the workshop. So this is around the like third or fourth time, maybe fifth time I was there, and this one teacher, she's a principal right now, by the way,
mm.
and she would she would bring her fifth grade class in every year, and they would always be the first ones there, and she would be on the front row. And so I told her, I said, listen, if something happens to me, if I fall out right now, then I'm going to give you the microphone and let you finish this workshop, because you know everything that's going to come out of my mouth. Every word. You have this whole workshop memorized as many years as you come in there. And she's taking these notes, and we're all laughing. And I was going, I felt complimented that she was in there taking notes. And she said, and she just said this thing out of her voice. And this is to answer your question, Jeremiah. She
Mm,
said, I don't even use the district issue curriculum. I just use your stuff exclusively, Mr. Cork.
mm.
My ears went up, because I'm like, oh, that was like bad news, because I didn't want to get banned by the district. I'm thinking I'm telling people to get rid of your district issued
Oh
curriculum
yeah.
and just use my
Oh,
materials exclusively. I didn't say that. And so I'm going back and forth. I said, no, my things are meant to be supplementary to what you're already teaching. And so
no,
I'm going
sir.
in there, and the principal walks up to me. And you know what she says to me, Jeremiah? She says, Mr. Court, you need to shut up. And I said, what do you mean? She said, you don't know who you're talking to, do you? She said, this woman you're talking to, this teacher, my teacher that you're talking to, don't talk to her like that, because if she tells you she's using your material exclusively and your curriculum exclusively, then just say thank you and move on, because she has the highest writing scores in the entire city using your material, Mr. Court.
Ain't nobody
And she's
fooling with
not
her.
using it, she's using your material, and she has higher writing scores than any other teacher in any other school in the entire city using your curriculum. And so if she tells you that, just say thank you, because she has results to back it up. And she says she's using yours, and now she's a school principal, and I go to her school and deal with her students. And she said, oh
That's too
yeah,
cool.
I've known Mr. Cork 10 years, and he had that. And then it was so funny. I was in Galveston, and 3 of the 4th grade teachers were in my workshop when they were 10 years old in 4th grade.
That's crazy.
And they said, oh yeah, he did this when we were little. And I say, what? It was like full circle. That's how old I am. So the three 4th grade teachers there were all 4th grade students in
Wow.
the workshop. And they all grew up to become teachers in the same district. It was crazy.
That is, I hate to, as the kids will say, that's what's up. So, I guess it kind of leads, you kind of were talking about it a little bit. How's that mixed with like family, as far as being able to do all the workshops. I know a lot of times I see you do them on Saturdays, be traveling, and of course being seemingly one of the leading education experts. How do you mix family with all that travel? You know, in a sense, you're giving yourself to a lot of people, but of course you have a family at home. How have you been able to mix both of those? For anybody that's, of course, and to anybody that is not a teacher, it's already a taxing job that takes away a lot from your family. So for what you do, I'm sure it takes a lot too. So how have you mixed both?
Well, fortunately, it's a blessing. When I started off, it was just me and my brother-in-law who would travel around the country signing autographs, thousands of autographs all over the place. And he was my road dog. He passed away in 2005. He had a heart attack.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, so I'm out there on the road by myself now. And then it sort of just easily merged. My wife, she would travel sometimes with us if we were going to like Hawaii or Bermuda or the Bahamas. Oh yeah, I'm going on this trip, or LA or San Francisco or something like that, or
Mhm.
Seattle. And so Miami, she went to that one. But if I'm going to, New Iberia, Louisiana, I see you when you get home, Eric. So that's answer to that question. And so what happened was um, my pre-COVID, maybe about 3 or 4 years before
Mhm.
COVID, my wife started traveling on the road with me because my youngest son had now graduated from high school. So
Mhm.
we were empty nesters. And so with the advent of technology, anything that she could do at home on the desktop, because she runs the company, she does all the booking, she talks to the principals. She says, I can do this in the car. I can do this on the road. I can do this in the hotel because now everything is digital. Everything you
Mhm.
have cyber, everything you can do at home, you can do remotely. And so as we start traveling, we were watching movies in the car. You said 8 years? Yeah, 8 or 9 years. So we way before COVID. So my wife's traveling on the road with me. So that
Mhm.
answers that question. And so it's like we're together 24/7. And so, and now I'm working with Jeremiah. She comes to the school. She has jobs now. She has to put the wires down. She has to wrap up all the cords and put the speakers out there and lay out the books and pass them out and help me arrange the tables and the chairs. And she's sweating by the time I start the workshop. So yeah, now she got to earn her money traveling with me, you know, going out there. And then she has breakdown responsibilities as we're breaking the speakers and the wires and all the technology down. Because I bring my own equipment with me. I bring my own microphones. I bring my own speakers. I bring my own overhead screen. I have this big IMAX screen that I use. Schools talking, Mr. Cork, you don't need to bring all that, Mr. Cork. We have microphones in our school. And then it's like this when you talking, and you got to talk to the kids for 6 hours like this. I'm like, okay. Billie Holiday said, God bless the child that got his own. So I start bringing my own microphone. I start bringing my own sound system and, bring everything with me. Only thing I need is a plug, an outlet when I get to school, and I got everything else. And so she walks in. So to answer your question, how does that work with family? Now, as my daughter, when she was after she graduated from college, she traveled with me
Mhm.
for a whole year. And so she was on the road, so she knows the whole workshop.
Mhm.
My sons, they travel with me. Dallas, they get in the car and they'll ride, they sit in the workshop, and it's
That's so
like a
cool.
family, it's like a family business in how we do it. That's to answer your question, how we juggle that. Now I'm transitioning now and sort of rebranding myself more as a writer, more so than an educator. So as we start doing it, you know, um, everybody in my family is going to own their own publishing company,
Mhm.
and start doing that. And so the family business revolves around literacy and doing things like that. So it's always an ongoing transitional thing when you're talking about involving family and,
Mhm.
other things like that. And I think, there are things that we wish we could have done differently, when we started, because, I'm out there and I'm trying to, build this brand and traveling around there. And then you have, daddy responsibilities, and I would cancel some workshops because my daughter has a prom or my son has a football game or something like
Mhm.
that. And so you kind of you learn to kind of balance that. But at some point, your mom and dad, they kind of made sacrifices so you could um, go out and pursue your dream. And at some point, somebody has to pursue their dream. Everybody just can't give up their dreams just to raise children.
Right.
And so somebody makes that impact. And so it's like a balance. That's balance and consistency. Those are my two words, Jeremiah: balance
Mhm.
and consistency. So that's my answer to your question. You have to have a balance because you don't want to resent giving up your dreams just so you could be home, be a mom, just a stay home mom. Because there are a
Mm,
lot of women who did that, and then they tell their husbands, "Oh, you out here and you successful, you pursuing your dreams, but I gave up all my dreams. I have a law
mm.
degree, I have a medical degree, but I'm at home all day raising children, which is a job just as equal to those things like that. But there's a balance. You don't have to just give up your dream. You have to learn how to strike up an equilibrium between your dreams and your joy of motherhood or fatherhood, and doing those things like that. So there were times when I wish I could have been here, for my sons, especially.
Mm.
My daughter, she's every time I come home, I'd be in her face. She'd be in her bed sleep, and I'm like, "Where you going to college? Where you going to college? Where you going to school? Daddy, I'm going to Shibuki University. I'm going to Shibuki." That was always her answer. It's always on her. So she was the oldest. So as I became more prominent around the country and more internationally recognized, you're on these big platforms and people coming up to you for autographs, and they're taking pictures with you and doing all this. And my daughter, she would see all that, and my sons would see all that. And I think it's a thing where they're proud of you. They know who you are, but
Mm.
it's a situation where you want them to still feel close to you. You want them to know that you will give it all up for them if
Right.
necessary. And so it's like when they know you have that commitment to them, there has to be things you have to do to reassure.
Mm,
I don't have to reassure my wife because she's on the road with me all the time now, so it's like she
mm,
sees everything. She's up there in the freezing weather. She's out there in the sun. She's in that car for 13 hours. And I do a lot of driving too.
mm.
And so we drive from Houston to Toronto, Houston all the way up, to LA and the coast, San Francisco, Miami, everywhere. That's like nothing for us. We just hop in our car and we go. And we drive. We're up there in Niagara Falls in New York, Adirondack Mountains and Utah mountains. We're driving all these things together. So we're together the whole time. So, she's covered as far as the husband and wife relationship. We're good. But it's
Mm,
it's it's the, it's the answer to your question about family when it comes to children.
mm,
But our children are grown now.
mm.
So now I have grandchildren that, I want to spend time with. And I'll sit and my granddaughter kind of avoids me because she said every day, G-pop, she calls me not G-pop. Every time you come in, you're always teaching. So sometimes she avoids me because like, you always want to talk. I'm always teaching her, and I got another little granddaughter now named Willow. And so she's trying to walk now. So, you do things so you can enjoy your life. But part of my life, Jeremiah, is writing.
Mm.
And so that's writing. That's one of my babies. That's one of my children is
Right.
my pen. So that's how I wrap this up.
Now you spoke about the transition. And I don't know if you want to reveal everything that you're about to be working on, but what are some things that you're trying to transition and do more writing? So do you feel comfortable sharing what some of those things are that you're about to start working on?
Well, it's not a secret that if you go to my Facebook page,
Yeah.
Erik Cork, ErikCork, you can follow me because I have like the max 5,000 people that I'm friends with. So I can't accept all the friend requests unless I just get rid of some random person and add you to take their place. But I write these long, what I call Seymour poems, because when you have so much, it's like Seymour. If you click on it and you scroll down, I write like these books, these mini books, almost like
Mm,
every other day on my page. And so one of the things I'm kind of going toward in the future, where we'll be doing podcasts, where I'll offer online courses and deal with the, advent of COVID, which accelerated the need or necessity for virtual teaching. And so
mm,
working on things where you're marrying virtual teaching to distance learning,
mm,
because I did a Facebook Live when the COVID first hit, like in April. All these parents were expected to become teachers now. Everybody's home, nobody's working, and now the kids weren't in school. Schools were canceled, and so these parents who didn't have any teaching skills, we expected to teach their children. Like, what are we gonna do? So I said, listen, y'all, come on my Facebook Live, and I'm gonna do a lesson. I was gonna do a 30-minute lesson, Jeremiah. It ended up being 2.5 hours.
mm.
6,000 people were on.
Wow.
Doing this whole thing. Teachers who were at schools stopped everything they were doing, gathered in the library, and watched this Facebook Live, and we're taking notes. We're getting a free workshop. Erik Cork's doing a free workshop, so the word start passing all over the country. I ended up doing 2.5 hours of freestyle doing writing lessons for the parents. The parents, put your kids around your cell phone, get your iPad, and just gather all your kids up. I'll go and teach them for a couple of hours because I'm a part of the community and I want to do something to do a writing lesson for free. All of them. and not knowing that all these teachers are getting these free seminars and I'm doing all this. I need to go ahead and do this. So when you ask what I have in the future, the publishing things that are on deck are going to be unprecedented. I can tell you that. You know, I got my eyes on things like Netflix and Disney and other things like that that are way above my pay grade. I have things that are going to be involved in mentorship and helping other educators who want to actually become, you know, traveling consultants or to work with their curriculum, working with school districts, as you said, about doing different things, putting things in place where they can actually have licensing agreements to where I train their teachers, and the teachers go in, because I trained one teacher in her school. She became the literacy specialist for the entire district. Seriously, I'm serious. And now, and then she started her own school. You know, it's like 2 schools, and she became the head administrator of all. And this just from just mentoring, you know, people like that. So when you say what's on deck, I always leave what I call wiggle room, because those are things that I know about. I don't know the things that God has in store for me that He haven't even revealed to me yet. And so I just sort of leave room for those things like that. So the answer to that is I know some things, but I don't know the other things that are on deck, Jeremiah. You know, so I just know I'm open to it and I'm obedient and I'm available. You know, the best ability is availability. And
okay.
So,
that's a sports term.
but I think right now, since this is full circle conversation, because the NBA playoffs right now, the best ability is durability.
Someone can learn that. So you already kind of said it. I mean, I think maybe it's the writer in you. I guess you're naturally segueing toward the end. My final question is like my other Walking Dead question. Of course, with teachers is always about people learning and learning something from it. Of course, you have pedagogy. I have a background as a writer, but I'm a bit more skilled as a reading teacher or guidance skilled at that. But you always want people to learn a life lesson for something. So what would be the lesson to those educators that are listening that kind of want to go to your path? Maybe give them free game. I won't say, some people say free game, but a lesson for them who kind of want to go on your path, whether it's being an educator as a writing teacher in the classroom or becoming an education consultant. What would be that something that you would like to leave them with?
You know, Jeremiah, your segues are so on point. Your questions, and I just want your viewers to know that I don't have a script. I don't have an agenda. I don't think Jeremiah has one. That's the great mark of an interviewer, host. I want to compliment you.
Thank you.
How you've conducted this whole thing, and your questions are fresh and it's very organic, the flow and feel of this. So if you're watching out there, the reason I said all that is because I was just thinking right before Jeremiah said that, you're talking about your reputation and how you got started and what you do and your outcome. Negro, let me see one of your lessons. Let me see. Well, what is all this? Give me a sample, or give me a bite, something like that. And that's what y'all. And now y'all sitting there like, finally, you got to something. I want to see, why is he even on your program right now? Let me see something that he does. And so, let me put my glasses on. I have my laptop right here. I was gonna like do a lesson. Let me see. I'm gonna do this one right here. Let me see. Turn this on. Yeah, the battery's low. Okay, one of the things, as you know, that students hate to be told is to write their papers over again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man! And if you ask them what does editing or revision mean, they'll tell you just mean. Parents will say it just means writing in the same thing over in neater handwriting.
Yes.
You know, and so I have this rap in the book right here that we use, and it's pretty popular that they use right here. So you have to get a license agreement to actually use this, but I'll give you an example of it. Okay.
Okay.
I know you recognize that tune, don't you?
Oh yeah. Now back for the night.
See, you can, and then we'll go, and it's called Back That Pen Up. Y'all got it? See, You can write about the page here, but the stage here of the writing process where you get your grade is when you read what you wrote, then fix it up, yeah, checking runaway sentences for how many ands, so's, buts, because, dot, 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 bam. Girl, your writing's good still, back that pen up. Boy, you're not finished till you back that pen up. Never fall in love with you, back that pen up. First draft, copy up, back that pen up. And it just goes on and on like that, and the kids are dancing, and depending on the age of the teacher, sometimes they'll stand up and they'll do that.
They going back to those days, don't they?
Slow and leave the word go. When it's time to revise, freestyle and improvise, like writing on the fly. Never, ever, ever try being perfect every time. Write it like it's in your mind. Check your spelling later, yeah. Most test graders, yeah, don't treat spelling errors like player haters, yeah. The only complication to capitalization is, do you know the rules? Never let frustration keep the pen from moving. Keep your paper grooving. Your brain does the talking, your words do the proving. I don't want to write it over. Back that pen up. Do I have to write it over? Back that pen up, and it just goes on like. Are you? And then I'll break down. I do a little Wayne right there. Like what I say, like wow, drop it like it's high. Wow, drop it like it's high. Drop it like it's high. Drop it like it's high. Wow. Yeah, and the kids are doing that. So it's just like it's funny. And the teachers are cracking up. I was in Atlanta, Georgia, and I had I messed up one time. I didn't know. Let's see if I got this on here. Let me find this. I'm gonna be able to find this. Let's see. Yeah, time is up. Let's see. Oh, see, I gotta find a place. Okay, I'm not gonna find it. Anyway, I put on Atomic Dog. Dun, dun,
You're not a Q dog, are you?
Oh, let me tell you, it was 3 Qs in the gym. Whether they took off their jackets, they took over the workshop for the next 10 minutes. I put on queued up. Dun, 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 dun. I was gonna play it right there. Dun, dun, dun. And the kids loved it. So the teachers got into it. And so music triggers memories, it triggers reactions. And so the kind of things I wanted to trigger are strategies and techniques and the actual skills and tools to express yourself effectively, not just putting words on a paper, but making them intentional and doing things that are, well, my number one rule is when you write is to stick to the topic. Stick to the topic, and they're like dance moves for everything. I just teachers, let me go ahead and go into some hardcore things for everybody who has been watching this, all the viewers right now. Let me go and give you some things you can write down in your notes. So this will be worth your time watching this. Write this down. There are 5 things to do. How many? 5 things to score above average on any state test. Number 1, stick to the topic. Number 2, well elaborated. Number 3, varied word choices. Don't use the same words over and over again repetitiously. Don't use the same sentences. Number 4, strong organization. And then indented paragraphs, transitional words and phrases, all that falls into that category. And number 5, no major errors in usage. So when we say no major errors, you can have minor errors, but no major errors. And usage is divided into 5 categories. It's number 1, the first 2 deal with what they call the mechanics. You're talking about spelling, capitalization, and punctuation. But then you have grammar, your subject verb agreement, pronoun antecedent agreement. And so those are the 5 rules. So how many things? 5. And we'll do the 5 things. Boom, boom, 5. Stick. And we'll do the dances for it. And the kids are sliding across and denting like the Temptations. And there are moves to help them memorize what the 5 things are to do. And then I have the 10 definitions. Remember, we talked about that earlier. This is a terminology you must know. If you're going to survive in any language arts class, these are the 10 words you need to know. And we talk about synonyms. We talk about paragraph. We talk about sentence, lexicon, syntax, elaboration, all of those words. And I give definitions of those things during the session. And the kids are walking away and they're like, you're filling them and you're pouring into them all these things that are filling up the gaps. They talk about closing the achievement gap. Well, part of that, half the job is teaching them the terminology, and they understand the terminology involved. They can talk intelligently. They can talk coherently. They can go to your grade level on the 4th grade from 3rd grade. They understand our teacher went over this. We talked about a paragraph. We talked about a sentence. I know a sentence is, it's a subject plus a verb that makes a complete thought. Because we can say a subject plus a predicate, and we talk about that, but you say a subject plus a verb because that's more effective, because stop. That's a complete thought. Ouch. That's a complete thought. See, no verb, no sentence. So you can't just have a subject. So if you put it together, they understand. So my little saying was, when you know the rules, you can break them more effectively.
Right.
See, as a poet, I'm always breaking rules. I break Facebook rules all the time. I write long. You ever scrolled on one of my
Yeah, I recently I was looking down a lot of your posts. So I write reflections a lot of times on Sundays. So I kind of do the same thing. I had to start cutting mine because I know people are like, man, this is a little wrong. So I understand.
But I don't write for people though. I don't write for people. I write to encourage I write for readers. I am what's called an acquired taste. And it's cool. I don't expect everybody to, they see my post, people run from my post, Jeremiah, because it's all, nobody got time to be reading all that. But there are people who wait for it, my post, and they sit down with a cup of coffee. They know, okay, I'm going to be on this page for 10 minutes. This is a long post. And so they're sitting there reading, they absorb it, and then they'll share it on their page, and they'll post it in forums, and they'll break down each stanza that I write. And the one I wrote most recently I wrote it yesterday. I was outside in the garage, and I got the picture of Allen Iverson when he stepped over Tyronn Lue. Remember that?
Oh yes, I definitely remember that.
Well, go on my page and look at that. The poem was called "Stepping Over and Stepping Off." And so as I relate to different, as a matter of fact, let me see if I'll find it right quick. And I'll close out right, just to give you a reader just another aspect of me. I'm getting my phone right now. Hold on, let's see.
Okay.
I don't memorize all these. Let me find it. But that's a good thing about Facebook. I have them all right here. Okay, I'll show you the kind of beginning of it. I'm not gonna read this whole thing to y'all. Stepping over and stepping off. Here's my phone. Ta-da. Stepping over complacency like I am Allen Iverson after swishing a 3. Stepping over excuses because what God has for me is for me. Stepping over distractions while doing my best to encourage you. Stepping over stagnation as if his name is Tyronn Lue. And so I was going on, and so
I feel bad for Tyronn Lue sometimes.
Yeah, and so it was talking about, I just use that thought. That's how thoughts come to me, and I write about them. And as a writer, I'm going to share this with you. And I've never even told anybody this ever. You'll be the first, and this is a scoop for you, Jeremiah. When I was younger, and I first started really pouring myself into writing, because I feel like I'm not just talking to a 4th grade teacher or an educator. I feel like I'm talking to a fellow writer.
Right.
Okay. And so that's what makes this conversation between the both of us even more appealing to me. And so I'd always heard about, you're going to get writer's block one day, so get ready for it. And, you're going to be stuck and you're not going to know what to say and things like that. Do you know, I will soon be 60 years old. I have never, ever experienced for one day in my life writer's block. I have never experienced it. And part of the reason, when I was in my 20s, when I heard about that, what came in my spirit? I said, you know what? If I ever get writer's block, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write a poem about what it feels like to have writer's block. I have yet to write that poem. I'm on standby. So if I ever get writer's block, I'm going to start writing about what it feels like to have writer's block.
It's always something to write about. It's weird.
I got that on standby right there on lock. So that you just got a scoop. Nobody's ever heard that story before. And so I would share. I got millions of them. So I'm going to stop right there and let you just sort of wrap this up. My wife's in the background talking about, yep.
No, man, it's been honestly an honor to talk with you. Like I said, when I saw you some months ago, and I think I saw you talking to Mr. Howard, I think it might have been longer than that. But I know I saw you. I was like, man, this dude's awesome. I was like, man, people need to know even more about him than I already know about him. And I guess I learned more about the workshops. But it has been cool talking to a fellow writer. Because even as an educator, as you said, I kind of still view myself as a writer. And ironically, I actually turned down a writing position because I decided I wanted to become a teacher. So it was very just weird that it happened that way. Oddly enough, someone last night I was at an alumni function. And I was like, man, Jeremiah Short was like, man, I expect you to be like doing your own radio show or something by now, I was like, well, man, I got the bug, man. I decided to work with the kids, man. I don't know what it is, but as you said, when you do get called, you have to just listen to that call. You can't go off of what your own selfish ambitions are. I had to go with that call. So it's been an honor kind of talking to you because I kind of the full circle thing. So thank you for joining me today. To those listening, because what I'm gonna do, I'm recording it, and then because I wanted to make sure everybody saw this. So I was like, man, I'm gonna put this in prime time, so to speak, at nighttime, so everybody can see this. I definitely want to know a lot of people to know who you are, not just as an educator, but as someone, as a writer, and just someone that the whole conversation has been inspiring to me, just listening to all the stories. So I don't want to share that with everybody. So
Well, I feel honored to be invited. I since COVID started, believe it or not, I don't do a lot of Zoom calls and things like that. I got my hair growing like, like crazy, like my man Davey from the Hamilton TV, the show, him, and like Shamar Moore when he had his hair in braids. I just took my braids out this morning, and so my hair is like, oh, it's like woo, big, longer than I've ever had it in my life. So I don't do a lot of Zoom calls, and I'm outside working, and what I'm doing is preparing what I call the vessels for my vision. And so I have a lot of carpentry skills. So I've built everything myself in my garage, in my attic, storing up for all of my future books that I'm about to publish, all of the other things that I'm about to launch into. And you'll be one of the first to know. I'll contact you and let you know, kind of keep you posted on what's going on, because you asked the question officially, but I don't know who's watching or who your audience is. So there are certain things that I just sort of keep vague, because people see and they'll jack your intellectual property. So I don't go into a lot of detail on what's on deck. But I do know that I appreciate this conversation that we are having, and this invitation. And everybody already knows, it's like, if you're going to get to Erik Cork, you got to go through Cynthia. Everybody wants to send it. And so when I send her your inbox message, she said, "Oh yeah, I like him." She loved your stuff that you had on your bio on your Facebook page. Said, "Oh, Erik, he's a writer." So she loved that the aspect of your literacy background, and not just education, but it was like more about writing. And she just felt in her spirit, "Erik, you need to do this." So I made sure I got in the shower and showered my head, put it in the hat. I ain't gonna take this hat off for your viewers right here to see.
Well, you still got, hey,
It'll be like a spring. Your hair will be all over the place, man. So
well, I feel grateful that you still have your hairline, man.
oh yeah, and so it's crazy. So and the kids will see me now and say, "Mr. Cork, your hair, look at your hair." And the kids will like it though. Hair is not a big thing for them. The longer the better for them. And so, but it looks crazy right now. So I'm gonna develop a style for it, and I'm gonna figure out some kind of way to do it other than put it in braids when I go to schools, because I have the COVID mask that I wear is the ones that I did actually go out and do some after the restrictions eased up. I would have my mask was built into a hat. And I had the hat on my head, so nobody really got to see my hair and things like that. So it was all in one when I would keep my mask, and I had a red velvet rope that I stood behind the whole time. So I told the kids, I'm here, but I'm really not here. So kind of consider this to be a virtual workshop. And so this is as far as y'all can come right here, and not just do the session. So they were all in seats, and they had social distancing, and, protocols were observed, when I go out to the schools. And even now, they, even in Texas, they say, well, we're not observing it. You're looking at the games last night on the NBA. Everything goes back to sports with us, Jeremiah.
Yeah.
And you saw all the people in the stands. I'm like, oh, like there's no pandemic anymore.
Oh yeah.
They're all in the stands. I'm like, oh, what's going on, man? Everybody's been vaccinated, right? Everybody's watching this. And so I've had both my vaccinations, and and things like that. And so I'm steady building and transitioning. So that's a loaded question in terms of what's next or what's on deck. I think part of what's on deck is keeping in touch with you and other people, like you. So, maybe we can do our regular segment. Maybe I come on once a month with you, and so
that would be cool. Trust me,
so
I'd appreciate that.
and you'll be the first one. So you'll be my go-to person. You'll be the one I break all my stories with, and all of my new innovations and things like that. Because my wife and I, we'll probably get a podcast going. It's gonna be more comedy than education, because all the stories that we have and stories that we will share on the road and things, our conversations, we'll go drive from Houston to Atlanta like it ain't nothing, 13 hours, and we're talking the whole time. So we can do a 1-hour podcast or a 30-minute podcast like in our sleep, on different topics. So that's just sort of one of the things. I think your approach, your questions were very on point. I was so glad you got to the point of getting examples, giving the teacher something they could actually use. For people who are watching this and they want to know, everybody got a whiff 'em factor. What's in it for me? what am I going to gain from this, from watching Jeremiah's podcast?
Mm.
This, am I going to be a better educator? Is this 30 minutes or an hour that we spent talking, is it going to be worth my time? You know, and those things, my wife said, we've been talking more than an hour. See how time goes by, Jeremiah?
Mhm.
So as we said, this is not a short podcast. This is Jeremiah Long. When
Like I said, the kids say your name's short, Mr. Short, but you're tall. So that's kind of that's
where
all.
are you from? What's your background? What city do you live in?
Oh, well, I live in Houston, actually. I live in Houston, Texas. So I live in Houston. I live in the Willowbrook area. So
Get out. Did you graduate from high school in Houston?
no, I'm actually from Mississippi. I'm a country boy at heart. So
What part of Mississippi?
well, it's called the GTA, but I grew up in this place called Mississippi, but I'm actually from like a little small town, Brooksville, Mississippi. So Rock Roads, all of that. So it's like
next time we talk, remind me to tell you my story about Macomb, Mississippi.
Oh yeah, it's like in the Jackson area. Okay.
I got stuck in Macomb like Groundhog Day. And I'm not gonna tell the story right here for your viewers. We're going to, it'll be another 30 minutes. But I got the hood of my car flew up, shattered my windshield, and I got stuck in Macomb for 2 days. And it was like Groundhog Day. Over and over again. I couldn't believe it. That's my Mississippi experience, What I like about Mississippi is everybody's from, because you have the county where you bought the car on the license plate. It's like, oh, yes. This is where they're from in Mississippi. So I drive through Mississippi. That's part of my journey. When I go up north to Chicago, Kentucky, I drive straight through Mississippi. I go up there and you're driving through Jackson and, all of those things like that. Or if you're in Memphis, you're in that whole little area up there. But I've never done any workshops in Jackson, Mississippi. We've talked about it, but we never got around to it. I did a Gulfport, something like.
Yeah, it's on the coast. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I said, I'm from Mississippi. I don't even know if I'm missing a whole lot just flying through here. So, but at the same time.
What brought you to Houston, man?
Huh?
What brought you to Houston?
Oh man, oddly enough, I was a writer, and but I was the typical struggling writer, and I was like, well, this doesn't pay the bills, so I need to go somewhere where you make a little money. So ironically, I always tell people, like, I got into education. I started off as a paraprofessional because I was like, well, I need to get something stable so I can write, and then maybe I can teach for a little bit and get a little bit more stable, and I go and write. And then I did that for a little bit, and then I think my second year is actually my second year. My first year, even as a paraprofessional, I got offered a writing job, and I was like, oh, I think this is everything I want. I had a chance to cover. I think it was Duke in the NCAA tournament. The guy was like, I want you to come down and write for me. I was like, nah, man. I was like, I want to teach. At that point, I started working with kids, so that's kind of like really my background as far as like getting into teaching. And those 7 years has probably been the best time of my life. So. But my writing skills are kind of translated because I still think like a writer. Because I don't even, when I'm doing lesson plans or anything, any of the routine structures I come up with, I have to write down everything before I even type it up. I still think like a writer. It's like a rough draft. You go through, you revise, edit, and then boom. So it's kind of like my mind still clicks the same. It's about that perfectionist mindset. And then I'm able to articulate now what I'm talking about. So it's kind of like, I still think like a writer, but I'm doing something different now. So, and of course I'm very good at explaining things because I'm a writer. So, so technically in a way I still am, but I'm doing it in a different way now.
Well, I'm going to pour something into you right now in front of all your viewers. Okay. My wife years ago was involved in a network marketing company, and they all wanted me to join with that because of my personality, and they know I can go out and get other clients and other business and things like that. And so one night they wanted to impress me and get me in this. So they scheduled a meeting between me and the director of the whole company. And he was a very prominent, well-off guy. He had a mansion over there off Memorial Drive, or Westheimer Gallery area. And so I went over there with him to his house. We're shooting pool. He had a red pool table, and we're in there talking. And so he said, so Eric, what's stopping you from joining the business, and full time, and you're out here with this writing thing like that? And so he said to me, writers don't make a lot of money. You can't really raise a family or do anything like that, or writing, doing that unless you're Stephen King or Steven Spielberg or. So I'm like, what do you mean? He said, I said, I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to do for my career. He says, most writers aren't successful. And you just got through talking about, paying the bills, especially with nowadays with books, everything's being digital right now, and newspapers going out of business and magazines and things like that. And so this is way before then. So he would even say that even more so. And I said, no, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to stick with this writing. And so this is what I'm going to do. This is what I believe. This is my calling. And I'm going to go on out there and take that dive. And it's been 24 years and I've just lived off of my pen the whole time. But the last 24 years, I've done nothing but write. I haven't, I've never had a job, in 24 years. This is all I've been doing. 25 now is writing, Jeremiah. 25 years. I've lived in my dream house right now, put kids through college, just using my pen. So I just want to encourage you, if that's your skill, that's your calling, that's your passion, that's your talent, that's your purpose, that's the thing that brings joy into your spirit. That's the thing I want to tell you right now, that you can make a living at that God will make a way for you to make your joy and your passion your profession and your career something where you can raise a family, somewhere where you can be prosperous, even abundant living, involved in your gift, because everybody has a gift, and your gift, is obvious. That's why I'm doing this podcast with you now, because my wife saw right away in her spirit that you are a writer. You are a writer. And so that it just comes across. Anybody who goes on your page for 60 seconds can actually see that. And so I just want to encourage you to always keep that flame lit in yourself as you're doing it, and never fall in love with your first draft.
Oh, I don't do that.
You can't, as a writer, when you're doing that. So you go and you evolve as an artist, because that's what you are, brother. You are an artist, and you're able to take that artistry into the classroom. And so when you're talking about math and science, you are teaching a lesson. But when you start talking about literacy and language arts and reading and writing, there's a different tone in your voice. There's a different inflection in your words. There's a different sparkle in your eyes. And kids can pick that up. They can read that. They can sense that. And so the more you start streamlining, the more start looking toward opportunities on your campus where you can become a specialist when it comes to writing and when it comes to literacy on your campus. The next thing you're visiting all the classrooms, helping kids with writing and doing that. And your gift is making room for you as you start doing it. The next thing you know, you're going to all these other schools using the things that you have written as lessons to help students become better writers. And you're just following in the same footsteps of, people before you who use their gift and their talent to actually put food on their table. And it had better outcomes than they even imagined, because you trusted in your gift. You trusted in your pen. You trusted in your anointing, in your calling, in your purpose. And there's no such thing as accidents. You're here in Houston for a purpose. This is not a coincidence that we're talking right now, because I'm an older writer, you're a younger brother, and you need to know that you can make a living as a writer. That's a revolutionary to say that in 2021, with the advent of technology and digital things, and people want to see videos as opposed to sitting down reading, where people don't like to read. Even the magazine articles, they'll tell you at the beginning, now they go, okay, this is just a 3-minute read, y'all. This is just a 5-minute read. This is a 2-minute read. You have to tell people in advance, how long am I going to spend reading this? And you got to tell people that now. And so you're catering to people's short attention spans, no pun intended. But that's something I just gave you a jewel right there. Short attention spans. And it could be a play on words, where short attention spans become long attention spans when short teaches it.
I think I might have to use that. Yeah. So I don't want to thank everybody. Well, when y'all that are watching this now that I'm once it finally, I'm gonna put it out today. But watching this, guys, again, I'm gonna say it's been an honor interviewing Mr. Cork. Of course, talking to a fellow writer, a veteran writer, and it's always cool to be able to just talk to another writer in general, but also someone that has a bleeding heart now for education, almost so much that siblings and family members don't even like listen to me talk to it half the time because I'm just so on all the time about it. So it's just been awesome listening to someone that's an educator and a writer, just such a rare combination. Like I'm probably one of the few also with you that has that combination. So it's been a true honor, and I hope that everybody's enriched and fulfilled by listening to this. And just again, thank you. So
let's do this again.
Oh, for sure.